Okay. Let's try this again. Oh my gosh. The power of JuJutsu Kaisen was too much. It was too much. And so we had to start this again. We broke the internet. We did. We broke the internet again. I feel like this is going to be a thing because it happened with Banana Fish and their live stream, and now we've done it with JuJutsu Kaisen. So, hello again. Man, okay, thank you guys. I don't know why. It just started buffering, and then I'm like, what the heck is happening? So, it's fine. It's all good. We can do this. It's great. I'll just save both live streams and just have them, that was part 1. This is part 2. So yeah, what we were talking about with JuJutsu Kaisen was about the connection of the characters. And we got into a little bit of shipping, but there's really not a whole lot of back. Thank goodness. I was going to talk about Mechamaru because here's the thing. Mechamaru is not the kind of character I would normally gravitate towards in shonen. My younger brother, loves characters like Mechamaru. Like anything like Gundam, mechs, robots, like stuff like that, my brother loves. So Mechamaru is like his favorite character in the show. And he's a character that at first I was like, oh, I'm not going to like this character. He's just going to be like the robot character. He's going to be like the panda equivalent. And I like nearly cried at his backstory because it's so tragic. And I can't help, don't spoil me, guys. Little caveat in this part 2 of the stream. I'm anime only, so I know nothing from the manga. But it is my headcanon that him and Miwa, I ship them. I know it's like a crack pairing, but I'm like, him and Miwa, I ship them because in every scene, in every flashback with Mechamaru, when he's looking at the other Jujutsu sorcerers, I noticed that Miwa's always in the forefront. And Miwa's in the forefront of all those, but like in the Juju stroll, she's the one that's like giving him gifts. And Momo make fun of her for giving him like the batteries. But she's always the forefront of his visions when he's looking back at the group. And so I can't help but ship them together. And so don't spoil me. But I'm like, I really hope that comes back, that we get more with Mechamaru later and Miwa, because I totally, that may be the one ship I'm like, yes, I'm all for it. That and Maki and Nobara, I'm like, yes, okay, cool. But yeah. So, Inumaki, I love his character. I just love his character, and that he has this really weird like curse speech, and that it's inherited, and that he's like the last of his people to do that. I like that Tsukishima's voice actor plays him. His whole fight with Hanami was really, really good. And then Kamo, the whole Kamo thing. I will be honest, the death paintings, I didn't know what to make of those. And a lot of you have commented about their relationship to like the Buddhist ideas of the 9 stages of death. And someone commented in yesterday's episode that the first 3 brothers, that Choso, Eso, and Kizuchu, are all like different stages of death in their designs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so genius. Because I was wondering when we saw these brothers together, I was like, these 3 characters look nothing alike. Like, how are they brothers? And I get that they've been brought back to life through humans, and humans are different, so that they each take a different stage. But that concept is so intriguing, that they're different stages of death. Like Choso is the early stage of death, where the eyes are sunken in and the skin starts to turn purple. And then Eso is like the skin starting to rupture. And then Kizuchu is like a greenish color. So it's like the decomposition. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. And I'll be honest, there's things that I want to see in season 2. Like you said, Adam, I want to see more of the upperclassmen. I want to see more of Panda, of Maki, of Inumaki. I want to see more of Miwa, of Mechamaru. I want to see more of these characters in season 2, but I also want to see more of Choso. Choso is so intriguing to me. And little known fact about me, or you probably know this if you're on Twitter, I am a huge Oikawa fan from Haikyuu. I freaking love Oikawa, and his voice actor, Oikawa's voice actor, is also the voice actor for Choso. So, and Oikawa's voice actor, does a lot of different things, like in terms of range. And so I feel like, why would you hire him to play Choso? So I'm very curious of what his character is going to be like. And then, yeah, we'll talk about Yuta at the end of this when we talk about the movie and stuff like that. Because Yuta's been such a tease in this show, such a tease, that I want to talk about him briefly as well. But yeah, so Camo, the whole death painting thing, the blood, the idea of using blood. And someone pointed this out in the comments too for the last episode. But Eso using the wings that are blood is like a blood technique. And the idea that these death paintings are using blood techniques like Camo does, I'm like, that is so cool. Like, I love the idea. First of all, the idea of a jujitsu sorcerer impregnating and aborting different cursed children is the creepiest thing in this show so far. It is disturbing. And that these three brothers are from those death paintings is disturbing. And when Kizuchu says, I have no memory of my mother, it's like that is just the scariest thing to me, is the idea of the origins of these cursed paintings and what's gone on. And it makes me very skeptical and sketchy of what else these jujitsu sorcerers have done. Because that's one thing that somebody wanted me to talk about, is the ideologies between the curses and the sorcerers. And it's very fascinating to me because there's all shades of gray. I like that in this series, there is no clear definition of good versus evil. There are shades, and we're seeing these shades represented. At first, when the series first started, it seemed very clear that the curses were all evil and they need to be exorcised. We got that with the curses that invaded the high school. We got that with Mahito. I told you all there's one character I hate in this show. It's Mahito. He is a character I love to hate because he's the worst. When he killed Junpei, I was like, nope, you've cemented it. We need to get rid of you. And Nanami was right. We need to get rid of him before things get worse. Yeah, let's slander Mahito. He is, oh my God, such a weird character, such a weird villain. A lot of people are comparing him to Shigaraki from My Hero Academia, and I think it's just because of the white hair, because their origins are totally separate. I mean, there's a connection of hate between Shigaraki and Mahito that I can see, but Mahito, oh my gosh. Yeah, the death paintings. Here's the thing. The start of this series paints the curses out to be completely evil. And we see that with the curses that invaded Yuji's high school. We see that with Jogo. Jogo is arguably, like, Jogo murdered all those people in that restaurant, save for that one guy that got out. He was like, Jogo is painted as a very straightforward, evil character. And I love that line that Jogo says in the series where he goes, humans are full of lies. They're full of contradictions and lies, and they're corrupt. Whereas the curses, we're pure. We may be pure hatred or pure evil. We are pure beings. Like, we are the ones that are not corrupted. It's humanity that's corrupted, and we need to get rid of them. So it's like, oh, okay. And at first it's like, okay, well, I don't know. I still feel like it's a black and white thing. And then Mahito kind of reinforces that, because Mahito's like, oh, you thought I was just going to save Junpei and use him? No, I'm going to kill him. And it's like, ugh. And Sukuna kind of reinforces that philosophy as well. But then here's the thing, like Tamia, like you say in the chat, the death paintings, suddenly there's this tragic element seep through. And the death paintings, because the three brothers, like you said, they didn't really get a choice in all this. They were created from mankind doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing. And so they were kind of created from this environment, and their whole existence is just a tragedy. Like, they didn't get to pick this. And like Eso says, he's like, and Choso says to Eso, he's like, we're choosing to side with the curses right now because that's just what benefits us the most. And I find that really interesting. I'm like, okay, so now the shades of gray are starting to come in. And when Yuji kills Eso and he says, I'm sorry, it's almost like Yuji is recognizing, I get that this is a bit more complex than just us versus you. Like, there's shades to this, but just like the whole chair metaphor, Yuji's like, I've got to protect the people I'm close to, and you're trying to kill them. So I don't want to kill you, but I've got to. And so I'm sorry that this has to happen. And it's like, ugh. And then the play on the human curse element. Yeah, absolutely, Tara. Mahito is very intriguing, and his very human appearance. Exactly. Yeah. The game of life metaphor that the curses are playing it humors me to no end because of all the board games that Akutami could have them play. He could have had them play Monopoly. He could have had them play Sorry, or he could have had them play, Chutes and Ladders. But it's the game of life that he has Choso and Ghetto and Mahito play. That's such a on the nose, fourth wall breaking joke that these curses are playing this game of life. Like, that's hilarious to me. That's probably one of that whole scene of them playing the game of life and Choso breaking the car and then Mahito just scattering and looking like, I've got extra pieces, hold on. Like, that's just very humorous, Akutami. Very, very, very humorous. Also, a little known fact about Akutami while I'm mentioning it, I've looked up interviews on Twitter where apparently Akutami and Horikoshi, who is the author of My Hero Academia, apparently these two mangaka are like besties and they go watch movies together. And I'm like, what chaotic energy that you have the author of JuJutsu Kaisen and the author of My Hero Academia be friends. Like, especially if you keep up with the manga of My Hero Academia, it's like, you guys are clearly influencing each other. So when people say that Sakuragi and Mahito are similar, I'm like, well, their creators are best friends. So, what can you do? But yeah, so Ghetto, that leads to the topic of Ghetto. And a lot of you have mentioned like my theories about Ghetto. Ghetto has a big question mark by him for me because I don't want to be spoiled. I know a lot of you know, those of you that have read manga, y'all know what Ghetto's about. And I'm glad you know, don't spoil me. But something is just off. Something is off about Ghetto. Very, very off to me. And some of you in the chat are like, Romania, you don't even know. Ghetto is so weird to me because from the get-go of the series, we've established he's a jujitsu sorcerer and he's probably a curse user and he switched sides. But he clearly has a past with the academy, probably with Gojo and the others, because I've seen on Twitter, I've seen fan art showing Ghetto and Gojo together. And so I'm like, there's something there. I don't know what it is yet. It's knowing this series, it's going to be tragic. And that's why, because in every instance we've seen Ghetto, he doesn't want to stick around and does not want to be seen by any of the jujitsu sorcerers. He doesn't want to be discovered. So I'm like, clearly Gojo made the comment that Ghetto's dead. He's made the comment that Ghetto's dead, which I'm like, but he's there. He's there though. So my big brain is telling me he has those stitches across his head and Mahito has all the stitches over his body. So my big brain is saying, okay, there's a connection between Mahito and Ghetto and the whole Frankenstein appearance. There's an aspect there, and it's like all the pieces are right in front of me, but I don't know the full context, so I can't know. and yeah, you find out more about him in season 2. That's what I'm excited for because there's so many things that this season teases. It teases the thing about the death paintings. It teases about Mahito's origins. It teases about Ghetto and his whole place in this. And I know that there's parts that we aren't privy to yet if you're an anime only. And that's what has me really excited for season 2. And it's what makes it really, really hard to not read the manga. I'm like, there's connections. The stitches are there. There's a connection between him and Mahito. I know there is. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's like, okay, show, you're going to tease me. You're going to tease me. Fine. Be that way. But yeah. And there's also the teasing about Sukuna and why he's fascinated with Fushigoro. Why is he fascinated with Fushigoro? Nanami makes the comment that Fushigoro is the only character that Sukuna is interested in. So I'm like, why? We get the obvious feral qualities of Fushigoro at the end of this when he just creates a domain expansion. And some of you have told me, and correct me on the chat, I don't think this is a spoiler, so you can tell me this. Yes, Digi, I am going to suffer through season 2. I know, I'm feeling it already. This series has that quality where it's like, I suffered through Junpei. Akutami is just going to wait and just dump all this pain on us. I just have a feeling in my gut that it's coming. But here's the thing. Correct me on this, right? Sukuna is Megumi's fanboy, right? But are Megumi Fushigoro and Gojo the only ones that are jujutsu sorcerers that have done a domain expansion? Can somebody in the chat tell me that? Is that a yes? Are those two the only ones that can do a domain expansion, Megumi and Fushigoro, or Megumi and Gojo? Are they the only ones that can do domain expansions of the jujutsu sorcerers? Is that a thing? Season 2 is a whole different turn. Oh, I'm excited for it. I'm also highly terrified. So I'm going to wait and see if you guys can tell me in the chat. Yes, for the time being. Okay, so for the time being, Gojo and Fushigoro are the only ones that can do domain expansions. Okay, that is huge, right? Because when he said Nanami couldn't do a domain expansion, I was like, I thought Nanami was maybe in the minority, that Nanami was like one of the only ones that couldn't do a domain expansion. But that's not it. It's that Fushigoro and Gojo are like the ones that have this talent. And that makes a little bit more sense to why Sukuna is so interested in Megumi. That makes a lot of sense. But also, in the conversation with Gojo and Megumi, hello, Funky. In the conversation with Gojo and Megumi in the flashback, Gojo says that you have all this potential, but you keep always wanting to do like a last-ditch move. Like you have this move that you want to do at the last minute to kind of be like a last-ditch effort, kind of like a suicidal move almost. And when Fushigoro is facing the curse in episode 23, it looks like he's about to do that last-ditch move. And then he has that image of Sukuna in his head, Sukuna being like, you have all this wasted potential. Why are you running away from a fight? Just do it. And I love that Fushigoro in that moment is just like, screw it, let's go. And I'm like, that's amazing. And so maybe that's why, I mean, there's the parallel of Fushigoro sitting atop all the bodies of the kids he's beaten up to Sukuna sitting atop the corpses. So I'm like, does Sukuna see Fushigoro as maybe his ideal? It struck me that maybe if Yuji fails and Yuji can't be his vessel anymore, I could see Sukuna being like, Fushigoro, you know, if you were my vessel, we could do all kinds of things. And it's like, okay. Yeah. So just like, I'm so curious. And I've had people tell me that we still don't know why in the manga, why Sukuna is so fixated on Fushigoro, but I'm very, very intrigued by it. And so Digi says $10 if Fushigoro is going to be stronger than Sukuna at the end. That would be really cool. That would be really awesome if Fushigoro had to take on Sukuna like in a rematch, kind of like what we saw from episode 5. That would be very, very interesting to see them all this time later and how much they've grown. So I will tell you all this. I have not read the manga, but I said at the beginning of this chat that there was one thing I was spoiled on. The only thing I've been spoiled on with the manga, because it's completely unavoidable on Twitter, it's unavoidable, is what Megumi's father looks like, Toji. I know nothing about Toji. I know nothing about his role in the story. I know nothing about him as a character. The only thing I know about him is that he has a giant worm wrapped around him and he's a freaking thirst trap. Like that is all I know about this buff dangly man. This buff ass man, Toji. Oh my God. I'm sorry, but Twitter has just had so much fan art on there. It's like Akutami said, you guys want a daddy character? Oh, I'll give you a daddy character. Here's Fushigoro's daddy. Here's Toji. Have fun with this. So I know nothing about him, but God, that man's buff. He's super buff. I don't think he's my type either, but holy cow, Akutami, like, okay. So we clearly know from this season that Fushigoro does not have high regards for his father, for Toji. We know that. Gojo explaining that Toji basically had Megumi as a trump card to barter with the Zenin clan. That doesn't bode well. The spoiler would have been worse. No, that's my only spoiler. I'm already getting Gin vibes from Toji. That's all I'll say is if you've watched Hunter x Hunter, Gin is Gon's father, and I'm still getting through Hunter x Hunter right now, but Gin is Gon's father in that series, and Gin is the worst. He's like worst father of the year. I don't like Gin in that series because he's a terrible dad. He just basically abandons Gon and is like, I had this kid. I don't know what to do with him. Here, sister, you take care of him. I don't know. And he's just the whole series so far that I've watched of Hunter x Hunter, Gin is just awful. And so watching this, I'm like, I'm getting Gin vibes with Toji just a bit because Toji's just like, I had this kid. I'm running off with this other girl here. Gojo, take care of him. Yeah, sure. So I don't know. I'm curious with season 2 if we get more with what we're going to get with Toji. I'm curious to know. Yeah, and Gon in the series doesn't care. And Fushigoro seems to care a little bit more because, and I think that's because in Hunter x Hunter, Gon was just left by himself. Okay? And in this series, Toji didn't just leave Fushigoro. He also left his stepsister. So it wasn't like Fushigoro was the only one left behind. Toji also left behind another person too. So I see why Fushigoro would have more resentment, especially with what's happened to his sister. Like I definitely see that more. So it's kind of like, I'm curious to know what more we get out of Toji. Just real quick, I know I've said I'm going to talk about Slam Dunk in this chat too, and I've kind of like left it out. But the characters, I don't know if anybody is interested in Slam Dunk that's in this chat here. But obviously the characters from there, if you are, let me know and I'll go into more detail with them. But we have the characters in Slam Dunk. I will say this, I talked about this before the last chat got canceled because we broke the internet. There's not really a lot of shipping in Slam Dunk. I mean, obviously there's Ayako and Miyagi, which I totally ship. I kind of ship Mitsui and Kaguri. I totally ship Mitsui and Kaguri unabashedly. I'm like, those guys, their friendship, it could be more, who knows? Obviously Sakuragi and Haruko, and then Rukawa in Slam Dunk is just basketball sexual. He's like the most asexual character in any anime I've ever watched. He is just not interested in any person, and that's fine. I'm glad. Way to go, Slam Dunk. Way to be progressive. But I will be honest, there's the 3 characters in Slam Dunk. There's Maki, Sendo, and Fujima. There is a love triangle if I've ever seen one. I'm sorry, but Maki, if you go to Slam Dunk for the Maki and Sendo supremacy because they're amazing. I feel like Maki and Sendo are the prototypes for Oikawa and Ushijima in Haikyuu. They really are. And Fujima, there's just like a love triangle, in my opinion, between those 3 characters in Slam Dunk. And if you on Vimeo, you will see that too. But yeah, Michi. Michi Mitsui. I love him in Slam Dunk. He's wonderful. And Slam Dunk's more about like the rivalry and the friendship. There's not than romance, kind of like what we see here in JuJutsu Kaisen. It's a nice comparison. There's not a whole lot of romantic shipping in either shows, which I really appreciate. It's more about the story and the character building. And then if romance happens, it's kind of outside and it's in the fandom's corner than anything, which is really good. So other than the ideologies and things like that, let's talk about Gojo and Nanami. We've not talked about Gojo and Nanami yet, right? I'm very curious to your thoughts. I have thoughts. I have thoughts about Gojo and Nanami. They're probably not what everybody else thinks. I know that a lot of people said the fandom chooses between Gojo and Nanami. They're total opposite characters. Total opposite characters. If you followed me on Twitter or in the Discord, or like Dazai and Kunikita. Yes, very, very similar to Dazai and Kunikita. I was also going to make reference to the fact that Gojo and Nanami are kind of similar to Yuji and Fushigoro, interestingly enough. And we're going to talk about them in terms of being mentors. But let me say, if you have followed me on Twitter, if you have been friends with me on Patreon or in the Discord, then you know that I simp so hard for Nanami. Nanami is my man. I freaking love Nanami. His whole backstory, I was so worried in episode 11 or in episode 13 that he was going to die. I was like, Mahito's going to kill him. We just lost Junpei. How dare they? I was so worried. But here's the thing. Gojo and Nanami are such perfect mentors for Fushigoro and Yuji. They are so perfectly equipped to be their mentors. They're exactly the type of mentoring that each character needs in like their most dire moments. Now, we've not seen Nanami be a mentor to Fushigoro. We have seen Gojo be a mentor to Yuji, but I feel like Gojo is much more of a mentor to Fushigoro in this first season because Gojo and Fushigoro have a lot in common. Fushigoro and Megumi are both from very well-off clans. They're from the bigger clans of the series. They both are well off in terms of their family and resources. Gojo is a rich boy, B-O-I. Gojo is freaking loaded. And the fact that he can give Mei Mei 10 million yen just on a whim, he's like, here you go, here's 10 million yen. Go do something with it. Gojo can travel, go get all the souvenirs, take off and do whatever he wants. Like the man is well off, Gojo is. And Fushigoro and him have that connection where they've, like you said, Anita, they've known each other a long time. But Fushigoro learns a lot from Gojo, like in episode 23 when we see the flashback between them. They're both kind of prodigy-like. They're both strong. They're the only two that can do a domain expansion that we know of at this point. So there's that connection between Gojo and Megumi. And I want to talk about Gojo here in a second as a character, but I find that him being Fushigoro's mentor, mainly in this season, is really, really interesting. And then on the converse side, you have Nanami, who is Yuji's mentor. And Nanami is a really, really good mentor for Yuji because Nanami is very practicality, his kind of go-to basics. Like he's very like from the ground up and rooted in his teachings. And that's what Yuji needed. Like, I can't imagine if it was Gojo following Yuji around during the whole Junpei episodes with them. Like, could you imagine Gojo just being in that movie theater being like, oh, look, a curse. Let's go find Mahito and go mess things up. Well, like, I can't imagine it at all. Like, Yuji needed someone like Nanami to explain the basics of curses, to explain how the powers work, to explain the whole jujutsu sorcery world. And I love the quiet conversations that Nanami and Yuji have after Junpei's death. I love that. I love that Nanami is there to kind of walk through, Yuji's psyche. And he seems to understand that Yuji puts others before himself. And it's kind of funny because in the flashback with Nanami realizes that he kind of was pushing himself away from what needed to be done in being a jujutsu sorcerer, like the salaryman job, like exercising the curse on the girl's shoulder, like realizing that he can help other people and how profound and impacting that is to help save them from curses. Like that whole backstory with Nanami. And then in episode 13, him and Yuji having those quiet conversations, like that's so impacting and it's so cool. And then when you go to the Black Flash moment later with Toto and we cut to Nanami explaining the Black Flash, it's like, oh, it just all connects. But yeah, Gojo would be pure chaos. And part of me wants to see Gojo versus Mahito. And part of me is like, I don't know if I'm ready for that because Mahito is pure chaos and Gojo is pure chaos. So I'm like, it's like chaotic good versus chaotic evil. I'm like, I'm not sure I'm ready for that if the manga goes into it. If we have that in season 2, but yeah, Gojo and Nanami are kind of two sides of the same coin. And Anita, you kind of comment on that in the chat. So yeah, Nanami's character is very straightforward. I love Nanami and the connection we have. Like Nanami is a very flawed character, but I like that we get so much of his backstory and understanding of how he thinks. And that ties in. But a lot of you have asked me to talk about Gojo. I know Gojo has a huge fandom. See you, Digi. You can see the rest of it. I'm about to talk about Gojo, but you can come back later and see me give my thoughts. But thank you for joining the chat. So here's the thing. Gojo terrifies me. Gojo is scary. A lot of people I see on Twitter, they're like, oh, Gojo is beautiful. Which granted, Gojo's eyes are like an eighth wonder of the world. They are beautiful. And Mappa's just like, I found a thing on Twitter where I shared it on the Discord where it was the SpongeBob meme and the police officer was like, easy Mappa, it's just an eyeball. It's like, the animation on Gojo's eyes, they're beautiful. But Gojo, there's a quality of him that kind of looks like a doll. Like there's so many moments of Gojo in this anime where he is scary. Like, he just looks like this creepy doll. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, he's hot. And I'm like, he's good looking. Don't get me wrong. But he scares me a great deal. And I think that has to do with just how strong he is as a character. Like, the Purple Hollow scene in that episode was just absolute insanity. And it was just him mixing colors, like just mixing colors, doing the thing and destroying curses. But here's the thing. He's creepy. And I was asked to talk about if his OP-ness affects his personality and his relationship with others. And I've noticed he really keeps his distance from other people. He really keeps his distance from characters and does a lot of solo work. When you guys said that Nanami and Gojo was like Dazai and Kunikita, I definitely get Dazai vibes with Gojo. And I also think of, if we're connecting back to Bleach, I think of Urahara and Gojo being very similar. Characters that on the surface are trolls and seem like comedic characters and have lots of comedy aspects. But then I'm sure that we're going to get more of him in season 2. Everybody's been saying that we get more with Gojo in season 2. And I'm kind of scared, because when you have a character that's really OP and is a troll and is overtly this strong and appealing on the surface, that leads me to believe that he is going to have either a horrifically tragic backstory, which could very well be the case, or there's something extremely dark about him that we've not seen yet. And I'm a bit scared, to be honest. I'm a bit scared to find out, because I know it's coming. But yeah, the animators, here's another thing. Malik Para 915, I'm looking at you on here, had the eyes of Gojo, and you should see heaven in his eyes. Yeah, you can. It's just his eyes are so unnaturally beautiful. But here's the thing. I've seen interviews with Akutami where the mangaka for JuJutsu Kaisen doesn't care for Gojo. And I'm like, that's hilarious to me. Where the mangaka is like, I really don't like Gojo, but here he is. I'm like, you create this character that the fandom goes crazy for and that is so OP and strong, but you kind of don't like him yourself. Like, I find that very funny. He rants a lot and like slanders Gojo a lot in his interviews. And I'm like, that's so funny to me. So I'm curious to know when we get to season 2, how that's going to go down. Like, that's so interesting to me. Like, I'm very curious what's going to happen with that. So yeah. But yeah, he kind of also reminds me, and this could be the VA that he has. Gojo's VA is also the VA for Kuro in Haikyuu, but he's also the VA for Hawks in My Hero Academia. And I get a similar vibe to Hawks with Gojo, in terms of Gojo likes to do solo work, and Gojo likes to do things on his own and doesn't like to involve other people. And that could be very much like Hawks, because Hawks's quirk in My Hero Academia makes him kind of OP too. Like, it's tentacle powers, baby. Like, he can do things all by himself and he doesn't really need any help. And Gojo's kind of the same way, only to a much bigger extent. Like, Gojo just doesn't need other people to help him. He's like, I'll just go take care of this myself. And then, oh, you guys need some help? Sure, I'll come in and help for 5 seconds and then go on my way. And that just kind of seems to be the same vibe. Zena, Akutami Sensei is the #1 Gojo hater. I believe it. Like, I've read some interviews and I'm like, man, this mangaka does not like this character, which is hilarious to me. Very funny that you'd create a character so popular and not even like it yourself. Like, that's interesting. But yeah, so I'm very curious to know what we'll get with Nanami and Gojo going forward in season 2 and in the movie. So with the movie, I'm talking about the movie here. I am going to react to the movie, and I'm really excited that they're doing the movie before season 2, because I've heard that the movie is all about Volume 0 and all about Yuta. And let me say, MAPPA has done 2 major teases in its OPs this season that I'm like, why? With the first OP, the whole trolling with Junpei, that was like, MAPPA, how dare you? But then in the second OP, I'm like, I kept waiting for Yuta to appear, because everything in the OP was present in the series. In the second OP, everything came to fruition in that OP, except for that one shot of Yuta with the black bag slung over his shoulder, and he looked back in the camera, and that's like the only shot we get of Yuta. And that's it. That's all they gave us. They just mention him in passing. The second years mention him, and that's it. I'm like, excuse me, show. How dare you tease this character and give us little crumbs and then be like, I don't know, he's somewhere. And the fact that he's the only one of the only second years that Fushigoro really respects, like that has a lot of implications, because it's like, okay, why do you respect him? Do you respect him because of how you view Jujutsu sorcerers now, or is it from past experience? I'm very curious about Yuta, so I'm really excited for the movie, because that seems to be, yeah, they're dangling him in front of us so that we don't forget about him. That's exactly right, Sandra. That is exactly right. They're just dangling this character in front of us like, oh, don't forget, this character is going to be important. And then when the movie comes out, we'll know, like, oh, here's this character that we've been wanting to know more information about. So I am excited for that. When the movie comes out and has English subtitles, I am definitely going to react to it. And then hopefully when season 2 comes out, I'm sure it's going to be 2022 by the time we get season 2. I'm going to be so excited to see it as well. All I keep hearing about on Twitter is Shibuya. I just keep hearing Shibuya and then sobs. Like everyone, I appreciate that people aren't spoiling, that people are just like, I appreciate that when Shibuya comes up on Twitter, people don't spoil. It's just like hashtag cries, hashtag ultimate tragedy, hashtag pain train. And I'm like, because this show, I can already see it coming. You know, this season ended on such a happy note and ended so perfectly. Like it was a perfect coming full circle moment. Yeah, look at y'all in the chat. Look at y'all in the chat with these sad faces in Shibuya. Look at all you. I appreciate that you're not spoiling me, but it's so crazy because I can see it with this series. This season ends on such a good note and in such a wholesome, we see our trio together. They're so happy. They're like, it's time for the next mission. And you know that that next mission is Shibuya because that's what's been talked up at the end. In episode 21, they were talking about Shibuya and that things were going to go down on Halloween. And I'm like, okay, you're setting this up, author. You're setting things up. And, oh, really? The second OP gives many hints about the next season. Ooh, okay. I know how this show is setting up, like, okay, things are about to get real. And then, yeah, like I said, everybody on Twitter when the title Shibuya is mentioned, people just start having teary faces. And I'm like, oh God. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard. I'm going to do my best because I want to be surprised. I feel like with other shows that I'm reacting to that I have read the manga to, it's fun. Like with My Hero Academia right now, I'm watching the reactions and it's fun. It's really cool. I haven't gone back and reread in a while. So it's neat seeing these moments animated and being reminded of parts of the manga. I'm like, oh, cool. But to be honest, I really liked going into this show not knowing what to expect. And then getting surprised, like so much, like so many surprising moments. I was like, oh my gosh. And it just made me appreciate it that much more. So I'm not going to spoil myself for Shibuya arc. But yeah, everybody has said bring tissues. And I'm like, oh God, I'm so terrified. But yeah, I feel like that's going to be fun. It's a nice contrast because I'm going to go into JuJutsu Kaisen not being spoiled. And then if you've seen my Vimeo or Patreon, you know I've watched all of Slam Dunk now, the manga and the anime, and so I pretty much know that. I just hope that they redo it. I really hope they do. If you've not watched or read Slam Dunk, you should. If you like sports anime or sports manga, it's great. You should do that. Bring towels. Oh God, no. Oh, let me see here. What else do I have on here for this conversation for our chat? I do want to at this point talk to you all about what I'm going to be reacting to and watching next. So yeah, here's the thing. Slam Dunk is now over. I've read the manga and I've been watching the anime. It's on Vimeo. It's on Patreon. So if you want to get on there, you can see my reactions. I'm going to be finishing up the anime this coming week and going over that. And then JuJutsu Kaisen is over now. So I had a poll for patrons only to replace Slam Dunk. And then I had a poll that was public as you know, to replace JuJutsu Kaisen. So, as far as Slam Dunk goes, I am replacing Slam Dunk with another Inoue title, which is called Real. And it's really cool because Slam Dunk was written in the late 80s, early 90s with Inoue, and it's about basketball. And then Real is also by Inoue, but he started writing it in the late 90s, early 2000s, and he's still writing it today. Like, it's gone on several hiatuses. It's been off and on over the years. Right now, there's 15 volumes of it. I just read the first volume of Real, and oh my God, it's amazing. Like, already. Like, it already, I say this in the reaction to Real, the first volume, but I feel like in one volume of Real, I've already had the amount of character development and plot development of like 10 volumes of Slam Dunk. Like, it's about, if you don't know what Real is about, it is about wheelchair basketball. So it is about, there's a character that's disabled, physically disabled, that another character stumbles upon, and he plays wheelchair basketball. And so it is already much more darker than Slam Dunk. It is dealing with much darker subject matter, and there's so much character development already. I absolutely love it already, and I'm only one volume in. So I will have it on Vimeo. I'm not going to be putting Real on YouTube because I'm so afraid that Shueisha is going to knock me down if I do. So it's going to be on Patreon and on Vimeo. So you'll be able to check it out there. If you follow me on Vimeo, it's going to come up on there. But it's so good so far. And then, yeah. So what's replacing JuJutsu Kaisen? Oh, friends. We talk about spoilers. We talk about not getting spoiled about something. Anushka Mandel, you already know. It's Attack on Titan. So here's the thing. Attack on Titan won the poll after going through all the votes and everything. That's what I'm reviewing next and reacting to next. Oh, y'all. Oh, yeah. And this is what I want to talk about. Good luck with Attack on Titan spoilers. So you guys know that my big thing is I love talking about anime with you all, and I love talking about manga. And I don't really, other than my younger brother, I don't have anyone to talk about these things with. So that's why I started this channel to begin with, to react to these shows and talk to you all about them. But here's the thing. I usually, the day stuff comes out, you guys comment on YouTube, and I will react to your comments and talk back to you all. But I'm asking you all a huge favor as friends, as fam on here. I'm asking you all a huge favor. Please help me go through the comments when Attack on Titan episodes come out. Go through and help me to not get spoiled. Because I know you guys have been wonderful. I cannot believe how lucky I am that those of you commenting on the shows I've watched so far, like Modao Zushi, like JuJutsu Kaisen, like everything, you guys have been amazing with not spoiling me. Like, especially like shows like Modao Zushi that need a lot of explanation. With the shows, you guys haven't spoiled me. You've been really good about giving information that has not spoiled the plot or characters. And I'm so fortunate and thankful that you all have done that. And so I have been so nervous going into Attack on Titan because I know that there are so many spoilers, not only because there's 4 seasons, but because the new season has come out. And I know the fandom is so excited about this show. And I can tell you, I've watched the first episode. Oh, it's insanity. And so I ask that, yes, Anita, I am starting with season 1. I'm starting from the beginning, y'all. Yeah. And those of you, it's okay if you've not seen Attack on Titan and you aren't able to moderate. I totally understand. And I thank you so much for even considering it. But if you have watched Attack on Titan and if you get on to see my reactions and you see a comment that has a spoiler, just politely, kindly, don't be mean, but be like, hey, she doesn't want spoilers. So maybe edit that comment so that it doesn't, have the spoiler in it. I don't want anybody to get mean. I don't like toxic stuff on toxic comments and things like that. But if you just see it and you're like, hey, don't maybe edit out that spoiler and just be polite about it, that'd be awesome. And probably what I'm going to do is wait a few days with the Attack on Titan reactions. I might wait a couple days before I respond to your comments just to give it time for a spoiler to, be erased or taken back. But yeah, I watched the first episode. Holy cow. I don't think I've watched an intense episode of a series like that in a while. So I am totally on board. I cannot express to you, when you see the thumbnail for the first episode, you guys will be like, oh God. I know I'm in for a ride, and I'm really excited about it because it's kind of up my alley already. But thank you all so much. Thank you for being nice and for offering to kind of moderate if you can, or if you think about it, or if you notice anything. I really appreciate that, because that's my favorite thing about going into these shows blind, is that my favorite thing is to go in blind to these shows and then be surprised, and you guys getting to see that in real time. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm going to just take a couple days with the Attack on Titan episodes, take a couple days off. So if I don't respond to your comment immediately, it's nothing personal. It's just me taking a couple days to make sure spoilers are weeded out if they are, or if they're noticed, and then going back and looking at the comments. So, but I'm so excited. This is not the end of JuJutsu Kaisen. It's going to come back, I'm sure, for the movie. And I'm sure, as popular as it has been for season 2, it's going to come back. So I am excited about that. I will say, I haven't done a live stream in a couple months. I think the last one I did was Banana Fish. And then it's this series and Slam Dunk. This coming Thursday, I'm going to put it on YouTube. This coming Thursday, we're having Cindereki. It is the audio drama for Skate the Infinity. Thursday night, I'll put it on the commentary on the community post, and I'll put it in the chat for the final thing with Skate the Infinity. But I'm going to do a live stream for Skate the Infinity at 7 o'clock that night on Thursday. This coming Thursday, what is that? It is the 10th. Thursday the 10th, we're going to do Skate the Infinity live stream. I am probably going to try to cosplay as Shadow with the makeup and everything, because I've wanted to for a while, and it sounds fun. And so don't judge me. Shadow's one of my favorite in that show, so it's going to be fun. But yeah, that's the next live stream for Skate. So it's going to be wild. I'm going to have a community post asking for discussion points with that series too. But yeah, that being said, this was a lot of fun. I hope that I talked about JuJutsu Kaisen enough with y'all to answer your questions and discussions. If you guys think of any other questions, feel free to comment with the videos for JuJutsu Kaisen. We can talk more about it. But yeah, Skate the Infinity live stream on Thursday. It's going to be so much fun. I've been like in a live stream drought like the last couple months, and then we suddenly get 2 back to back. It's like, yeah. And then after that, I don't think we'll have a live stream until number 6 ends. And that'll be a couple weeks. That'll be in, I think, early July is when I'll be done with number 6. So with that being said, I'm so excited for Attack on Titan. I'm so excited for Real. And I'm so excited to talk about these shows with you all. I'll go back and edit these 2 live streams. And so they'll both be in the JuJutsu Kaisen playlist. So if you guys want to go back and see this again, you can check it out there. But thank you guys so much for coming with me on this Sunday morning. I don't know if it's Monday your time or if it's Sunday afternoon or evening, but thank you guys so much for joining me in this discussion. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad to get this like thoughts about JuJutsu Kaisen off my chest. And now, since I'm anime only, it's just the waiting is the hardest part, and it's going to be a long wait, but it's going to be worth it. So thank you guys for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, a wonderful week. I'm going to go react to some series now. I got a couple shows in mind, so I'm going to go react to them now that I'm here and have the computer hooked up and everything. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much. If it's like early morning, get some sleep, have a good week. And I hope you all stay safe, take care, and I'll be back soon with more reactions. So thank you guys so much. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll talk to you all again soon. Bye.